The coffee isn't giving you energy. It's preventing a crash. And there's a meaningful clinical difference between those two things. One that changes how you understand everything you've been told about fatigue, caffeine, and what your body actually needs. Let me describe something. You need coffee before you can function, not to function better, but just to reach baseline. Without it, you're foggy, irritable, slow to start. The first cup doesn't lift you up. It brings you to something that feels like neutral. The dose has escalated over time. What used to be 1 cup is now 2 or 3. You've tried to cut back and felt genuinely unwell, not just inconvenienced. Unwell. Or this version. You function fine with coffee, sharp, capable, on top of everything. But there's a window, usually mid-afternoon, where something shifts. An energy drop that coffee doesn't quite touch the same way it did in the morning. You push through it. You add another cup. And at some point, you noticed you can't remember what you felt like before you needed it every day. The standard explanation is simple. Caffeine gives you energy and focus. That's true for a rested person. For the person I'm describing, the mechanism is completely different. Same molecule, different body. Entirely different clinical picture. Caffeine is an adenosine receptor antagonist. Adenosine is a byproduct of normal brain activity. It accumulates through the day, creating what's called sleep pressure. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine builds, and the more your brain is signaled towards rest. Caffeine blocks the receptors that adenosine would normally bind to, so you don't feel the tiredness that's actually there. The fatigue is real. The caffeine just prevents you from registering it. In a rested person, this produces genuine alertness and performance enhancement. In a chronically stressed person, something different is happening. The chronically stressed body has been running on adrenaline to compensate for a regulatory system that is no longer doing its job fully. As the day progresses and adrenaline begins to drop, the system approaches what I call a stall threshold, a floor below which it cannot maintain normal function. Cognitive clarity drops, mood destabilizes, the system signals urgency. Caffeine's role in this person is not to produce energy. It's to prevent the floor from dropping, to maintain the minimum operating threshold that keeps the system functional. The person feels functional, not energized, because functional, in this context, means avoiding the crash. Here's why the dose goes up over time. Each time caffeine maintains the floor, the system learns to expect that support. Over time, the threshold rises. What prevented the stall at 1 cup no longer prevents it, so the dose increases. Not because of preference, but because the floor has moved. Escalating caffeine dose is a clinical signal, not of caffeine dependence in a behavioral sense, but of a rising stall threshold and deepening depletion. The body needs more support to hold a floor that is progressively harder to hold on its own. What happens when you skip the morning coffee? Not mild grogginess, not inconvenience. Genuine inability to function, headache, cognitive fog, irritability that doesn't resolve with time, a physical heaviness that settles in before noon. That is not caffeine withdrawal in a simple sense. That is what happens when you remove the floor mechanism from a system that has been depending on it to stay operational. The withdrawal symptom is the system showing you what it looks like without its support structure. When people say they're running on adrenaline, what we measure in the clinic is cortisol rhythm disruption. The adrenaline is what you feel. The cortisol curve is what it looks like under the hood. Caffeine sits between them. It doesn't create the energy. It maintains the conditions that let the system stay active long enough to feel functional. Caffeine is not the enemy. It's a signal. If you need it to reach baseline, not to perform better, but just to reach baseline, your body is communicating something specific about its current state. It is not weakness. It is not addiction in the moral sense. It is a system that has organized itself around external support to maintain a floor it can no longer hold independently. The correct clinical response is not to judge the dependency, it's to ask what the dependency is covering. The question is not how to drink coffee correctly. The question is, what would your body tell you if you removed the floor? What you would hear is the signal the caffeine has been suppressing. And that signal is information, specific, honest, and more useful than anything a supplement label will tell you. Your body isn't broken. It's organized itself around a floor mechanism because it needed one. Understanding why it needs it is where recovery begins. 2 decades of clinical practice, 5 distinct stages, each with a specific clinical picture, measurable markers, and a specific direction of treatment. What restores you below a certain threshold actively depletes you above it. The map is in the course. The link is in the description. In the description below is a free 5-day course. Day 1 alone will change how you read every morning you've ever had. Over 5 days, I'll walk you through the full mechanism, what's happening in your body, how it progresses, why conventional approaches miss it, and what genuine recovery actually requires. The link is in the description. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm Dr. Jason Trombley, DAOM, AP. This is the Adrenaline Project.